Hi there and welcome. Today's video is all about the pathways to training and becoming a qualified counsellor or psychotherapist. The reason for this video is because what we're going to discover today is that there are lots of different pathways to getting to and becoming a qualified counsellor and therapist. And it's just really important for people to know what those options are and the choices they need to make to ultimately work as a counsellor or therapist. Just to do a couple of quick introductions, I'm Myira. I'm an accredited counsellor. I also work as a supervisor and a counselling tutor, and I'm the founder of the Muslim Counsellor and Psychotherapist Network, the MCAPN. And joining me today is Sara. Sara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sara Betteridge. I'm a counselling psychologist, a chartered counselling psychologist, and I've been working in mental health services for over 20 years now, doing lots of different things, but more recently specialising in family therapy, incorporating people's faith and spirituality. I supervise and do some teaching and training as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
So today is all about us thinking about the pathway into counselling and therapy.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, Myra, about that, because it's something that I know a little bit about, but don't really know how it works. You and I have done a video on the pathways to becoming a psychologist and all the different types of psychologist roles that are out there and how to do that. And you were asking me about that. And so now in this video, I'm going to be asking you all about the kind of counselling and psychotherapy training. So if I am a young person, maybe I'm doing my GCSEs or even my A-levels, and I'm thinking that I might like to work in the field of therapy, work in the field of kind of helping people with their problems and difficulties. What would I, where would I start, I guess?
Yeah. It's interesting because the very first thing I want to say is that a distinction between psychology and being a counsellor and psychotherapist. If you're thinking about becoming a psychologist and wanting to work as a clinical psychologist or any type of psychologist specialism, please watch our other video. Sorry, you talk us through all of those pathways. Those are completely different pathways to becoming a counsellor or psychotherapist. So I want to make it really clear that there are two distinct pathways. So we have a video on a different video on the psychology pathway. And the main reason I want to make that distinction is because I have to say, unfortunately, I get a lot of psychology graduates emailing me, Myra, I've just graduated with a psychology degree. What are my next steps to becoming a counsellor or therapist? And the really sad thing is that to become a counsellor or psychotherapist, you do not need a psychology degree. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking, right, I'm going to go and do my psychology degree and then become a psychotherapist, that's not the pathway. Yeah. Or I want to work as a counsellor, I must get a psychology degree. You don't need it. Mm-hmm. And so I'll talk you through what that pathway is in a moment. But if you're sitting here right now thinking, oh, I'm currently doing a psychology degree, or I'm doing psychology A-levels and I want to go and do a psychology degree, or you're a graduate in psychology, you can still become work therapeutically. But I would say if you've already got a psychology degree or you're currently doing one and you want to make that psychology degree be worth something, you have two potential routes. You can either go down the counselling psychologist route. Please watch the other video to know what that looks like. Or you can use your psychology degree as any other degree and in a way jump straight into a higher level of counselling or psychotherapy training. So it's not that you need a psychology degree specifically, but what you can do is you can use the fact that you have a qualification at degree level to, excuse me, to be able to go straight into a postgraduate counselling or psychotherapy qualification training. Okay, so that's a very specific route if you've already got a degree, and particularly if you've got a psychology degree. So if we just kind of zoom out a little bit, and think about the pathway then into becoming a counsellor or psychotherapist. Now, we were speaking a moment ago, Sara, before we started recording, is that what we realised is that psychology training versus counselling psychotherapy training are almost the opposite of each other. With when as a psychologist, or if you want to become a psychologist, your starting point is your psychology degree, and then you branch out and go down a particular pathway to become a specialist psychologist, clinical psychologist, counselling psychologist. Whereas to become a counsellor or therapist, it's the other way round. You can start off in many different places with training, but all roads lead to Rome in that respect. All roads, when it comes to counselling and psychotherapy training, is that they all lead to the same end point, which is I'm working as a counsellor or therapist. So the difference that if you want to become a counsellor or psychotherapist, you've already identified your end goal. You know that you want to be working therapeutically with clients, and those clients might be individual adults. It might be working as a couples counsellor or a family counsellor, family therapist, or CYP counsellor, a children and young persons counsellor. So absolutely, you can go off and specialise in any one of those, but your end point, regardless, is that you're working as a counsellor or psychotherapist. So really today, what I want us to talk to all of you about is, okay, so how do I get there? What's the pathway then to becoming a counsellor or psychotherapist? Now, the interesting thing, and I think this is another big difference between counselling and psychotherapy and psychology, is that the average age of becoming a counsellor or psychotherapist is much older. A lot of people will want to train as a counsellor or psychotherapist as their second career, even as something they want to do when they retire. So the average age of somebody coming into training is in their mid to late 40s. Right. So if you're watching this as a GCSE or A-level student, don't let that put you off, but be mindful that to train as a counsellor or psychotherapist, it's not qualifications that they're looking for. They're looking for life experience. They're looking for the institutions that offer the training are looking for you to have lived a little bit. And so often there is a minimum age for applications, for eligibility to get onto courses. When I trained, the minimum age was 25. Right. I think I started my training when I was 27, 28. And even then, I was the youngest on my course.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So to become a counsellor or psychotherapist, very often it will be a case of, oh, I've perhaps already done degrees, perhaps already gone to university, had a whole different career, and now I want to become a counsellor or psychotherapist. So if you're watching this and you're kind of under 25, what I would actually recommend is, by all means, if you really want to get a degree, by all means go and do that. Equally, if you really want to become a counsellor or psychotherapist, similar to your advice in the psychology video, go and do work experience, go and be a support worker, go and volunteer in a counselling or mental health service or charity. But it won't be in a therapeutic role, it will be in an admin support role, because then you'll get a sense of the kind of work that happens in this field. So I always recommend kind of go and live life. Because I deliver counselling training, we'll get a lot of people applying that are not yet ready to do the training because they perhaps just haven't gone and had much of a lived experience. And so we're a case of come back in a year or two. And that's not always to do with age either. It can often be that they might be somebody who is older, but perhaps they have their own concerns or problems or issues that they just need to work on first. Because the biggest difference with training as a counsellor and psychotherapist is that the process, the journey, the training is all about you as the practitioner. It is all about you being able to be a reflective practitioner and to be what we call robust enough and resilient enough to be what we call the emotional container for the client's stuff. For when you're sat with a client, that you can take in and sit with the emotional kind of weight of the things that they're talking to you about. And so the training to become a counsellor and psychotherapist is all about where you are at emotionally, psychologically, and where you are in just in terms of what we might call ego strength or robustness or resilience. So the starting point for training as a counsellor or psychotherapist is not about qualifications. It is about lived experience, and it's about being a reflective person. So what I always recommend to anyone that wants to become a counsellor or psychotherapist, go and get your own therapy, get yourself into personal therapy and see what it is to be in the client seat first. Any counsellor or psychotherapist who does well in their training, and I think does well then after training, post-qualification, is somebody that's had first-hand experience of being a client. So by all means, go and get work experience, but please go and be a client. Go and get yourself into personal therapy. So, okay, tick boxes, right? I've got some experience, perhaps I'm in personal therapy. The pathway then to becoming a qualified therapist, there are two stages to it. The first stage is pre-training, is what I call pre-training. And then, of course, there's the actual training. So pre-training might be doing counselling skills training courses. Now, that might look either, the levels of those are either a level 2 counselling skills course and then a level 3 counselling skills course. Now, these are very often offered by adult education colleges, or they're offered by counselling training institutions. And some adult education departments in universities as well, as part of their adult education programme. So what you're looking to do is getting yourself onto a counselling skills training course. Now that, depending on where you do it, that might be for one term, an evening course for one term. When I did it, it was a 10-week programme. It was a certificate in counselling skills. It was a 10-week programme, a Tuesday evening, 3 hours every Tuesday night for 10 weeks. That would have been my equivalent of a level 2 training. And
can I just ask,
Myra,
is there any prerequisites to get on that? Do you need your English and Maths GCSEs, or do you need to be 25 plus? Are there any prerequisites to get onto a level 2?
No, there will be some prerequisites around kind of English and Maths, but even then, because it is a counselling skills, it's a very practical course. You're learning to have good listening skills. It's not academic in that respect. It's purely about your ability to relate to people and to be able to listen. That's what you're learning to do.
Yeah, and the reason that I think that's really important is because I think that's another really big difference between going down the counselling and psychotherapy training route or the psychology training route. Is that actually there's lots of people out there that you don't need to have your GCSEs or A-levels or anything to start the process of becoming a counsellor and psychotherapist. It's a much more kind of internal process. You need those skills as a psychologist too, but it would be an academic route. So thank you. Absolutely.
So and nowadays I think courses are becoming much more transparent and clear about what level their course is at. So you can literally Google kind of level 2 counselling skills and a whole load of courses will come up for you. After doing that level 2, what you then go on to do is still in the pre-training. This is not your core qualification training, this is pre-training. You then go on and do a level 3, and that is a certificate in counselling skills or certificate in counselling skills and theory. That very often is delivered as a 1-year certificate. And again, it will be a weekly class, one evening a week, but for one academic year. Again, depending on where you're doing the training, some courses now, in order to be more accessible to people, may not be as an evening class, it might be a weekend a month, for example. So again, don't be put off by that. Again, see what's most accessible for you. But your level 3, very often it's a 1-year course, weekly, one evening a week, or a weekend Saturday class, perhaps once a month. Now, those 2 courses, that kind of counselling skills qualifications, are the prerequisite then to go on to your counselling training course.
So that will be about a year and a half? Potentially. Potentially
a year to 2 years, again, depending what level 2 and what level 3 course you choose. Your level 2, as I said, for some people it's a year, other people can condense it into an intense couple of weeks, again, depending how your local colleges offer the course. But yeah, you're looking at a minimum 1.5 to 2 years, that level 2 and level 3. That is what we're looking for as a prerequisite before you then come on and do your counselling training or psychotherapy training. So imagine we're at that point, right? I've got my counselling skills. Now at this point, you have a choice of what training you want to do. And that choice is based on, one, it's based on what potential qualifications you already have. And second of all, what modality of counselling you want to be working in, and then what course is available to you. Now, very often people, by process of elimination and accessibility, end up doing the counselling or psychotherapy training that they do because that's the one that's local to them. And so people end up doing a diploma. I'll talk through the different levels in a moment, but people will end up doing a diploma or a postgrad diploma or a master's because that just happens to be the training qualification that my local university or college offers. Okay. Now, the distinction then between the psychology pathways that in the other video you've mentioned, Sara, and counselling and psychotherapy is, once you've done those prerequisites, your level 2 and level 3, after that, you have level 4, level 5, level 6 and level 7 training, but all of them and any one of them is considered counselling or psychotherapy training, your qualification. You will qualify as a counsellor or psychotherapist after it.
So doing level 4 will qualify you, doing level 5 will qualify you, right? Okay. Yeah,
and rather than thinking, right, I now got to work my way through the levels. So just to be really clear, you just only need to do one of them and you are qualified. Now, you're probably now wondering, well, why would I want to do level 7 if I've got a level 4? The difference being that a level 4 is a 2-year part-time diploma, which is open to people that don't have a degree. Right. So the level 4 diploma is a very common, qualification that a lot of counsellors will go on to do as their core training because they don't already have a degree. So it's more accessible. So if you're sitting here and going, I don't have a degree, but perhaps you're sitting here as an A-level student, or you've worked for years and now want to become a counsellor, bearing in mind you've done your level 2 or 3 counselling skills.
Everybody has to do the 2 and 3.
Yeah. As long as you've done some kind of counselling skills certificate before, you then apply and you do your 2-year diploma, level 4 diploma, and that qualifies you as a counsellor. Right. And that's it. And then you're wondering, well, why would you have those other levels? The other levels are there. So if you've already got a degree, you can jump the level 4 and go, well, actually, I do want to become a counsellor or psychotherapist, but I just want a qualification that is at a higher level. I perhaps want to do a more in-depth course, or perhaps I want to do one that is at a more robust level, but one that perhaps includes research, one that's more academic. If you've already got a degree in any other subject, and then you've done your level 2 and 3 counselling skills, you can then put aside, no, don't worry about your level 4 diploma. You can go straight into a level 6, which is a postgrad diploma, or a level 7, which is a master's. Right. And so the criteria to get onto a level 6 or level 7 is a degree, because they're postgraduate levels. So that's the difference why you have a level 4 and then you have a level 6 or level 7, because depending on whether you've got a degree or not, it tells you which one you can then apply for.
Right. So can I just to make sure that I've understood this? So anybody can get onto a level 2 and level 3 to do their basic sort of skills. You don't need any pre-qualifications to do that, but there might be some issues around maturity and things. Then once you've done those, you can do your 2-year diploma in level 4 and practice as a counsellor. Yeah. If you are somebody, say, for example, that we've been talking about, that has a psychology degree, but it can be any degree in any field, and you think, right, I want to just go into counselling. I don't want to go into the psychology route or whatever degree you've done. I want to go and work with people in a therapeutic way, using counselling and psychotherapy skills. I then do my levels 2 and 3. But then I can go and do a postgrad diploma or a master's in counselling and psychotherapy. And we're going to talk about the modalities, as you mentioned, and what kind of levels 4, 5 and 3 you could 4, 5 and 6 you could do, but that would be your trajectory rather than okay.
So, and I think this is one of the things that people get confused about, thinking, oh, I've now got to work my way through levels 4, 5, 6 and 7, and I'm like, no. In terms of your core training, as long as you've got one of those, you've either got a level 4 diploma or a level 6 postgrad diploma or a level 7 masters. As long as you've got one, you're good to go. As I said, the reason why people might want to go for that level 6 postgrad diploma or level 7 masters is because the training is longer, it's more in depth, and also the difference being that at a level 4 diploma, very often the qualification itself is in counselling, whereas at a level 6 postgrad diploma or a level 7 masters, that is where you're getting into psychotherapy training, and you can qualify as a psychotherapist. Right,
okay. So that was one of my big questions for today, is what is the difference between a counsellor and a psychotherapist? And from my knowledge and experience, which obviously is not as a counsellor or a psychotherapist, but as a psychologist, was a level of training.
Yeah. Now, and it's interesting because this is, you know, a contentious issue within the profession. Kind of, people think, oh, it's all the same. In that respect, lots of people qualify, and there is a real mix between counsellor therapists. I personally don't distinguish between the two, saying, right, a counsellor can only do this and a psychotherapist can only do that. What I say is that literally what it says on the tin. What does it say on your qualification?
Look at somebody's qualifications.
That is what you can go on and call yourself. And very often a psychotherapy training happens at that level 6 and level 7 level. And the reason for that is because it includes research, it includes a longer study, because you're looking at a 2-year diploma, but your postgrad diploma might be 2 years, but it might be in depth. Whilst you're on that course, you're asking to do more clinical hours. So you're doing you're working with clients whilst doing that training, but you need more hours. And your level 7 masters is a 3-year masters, part-time. The first 2 years is your embedded level 6 postgrad diploma, and then your 3rd year of your masters then is your research. So there's something about your level 6 and 7 to then call yourself, usually their psychotherapy training, to then call yourself a psychotherapist, is because it's got a broader and more in-depth clinical or clinical hours and in-depth training around clinical practice. But that does not take away from your level 4 diploma. Your level 4 diploma is still a very robust counselling training. It's the level 4 diploma is the course that I teach on, and so people come and do those 2 years with us. As I said, you start working with clients whilst you're on in your core training, and you're starting working with clients, and so by the time you qualify with your level 4 diploma, you're eligible. You are already working with clients.
Yeah, so I'm wondering whether we could take a pause and think about modalities, because I think that's going to help us understand even more some of the differences between kind of levels 4, 5 and 6.